Today we're looking at the continuing evolution of cybersecurity with regard to information and event management. I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and we are joined by a real veteran in the cyber wars, someone who has seen a lot and can help us talk through a little bit of this. This is Chandra Pandey, CEO and founder at Seceon. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of your work and the great work you are doing for the industry to bring the understanding of cybersecurity to the whole world out there.
Well, it's an amazing, amazing time to be in the space, and you have a lot of perspective to offer. And before we dig in on how you're coming at it, which is really interesting, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the threats are that an organization is faced with these days. I mean, it's obviously we see a lot of the headline, the headlines with regard to cyber threats and cyber hacks. But what are some of the real underlying threats that an organization is faced with these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you look into most of the headline you see, either data has been exposed and breached. So there are two kind of categories of those things are happening out there. The one category you see is where their actors are trying to breach the organization and collect their the data sets, and those data sets can be personal data set, confidential, intellectual property, and all that in there. And other set of the threats where you can see that people talk about is like nations kind of issues out there. And then the third type of category which has started coming in there is where disrupt the business. So that disrupt the business is where you are having this ransomware being put it in there, or you might have a DDoS kind of attack in there to put somebody down, business down, operation down, and all that in there. Exchange, sometimes it is exchange for money, sometimes it's just like creating the brand damage and all that. So those are three broad categories. How those attacks vectors are, that can vary depending on the various situations, where you can be looking into the vectors which are starting with the crimeware kind of things, which is like you got your ransomware, malware, your spyware. Sometimes people talk about that, in the backdoor, IoTs related issues, exploiting the exploits in there. Then you got credential related issues, can be like compromised credential, like social engineering, and then same time you go into the now vulnerability exploits and IT mistakes. It's like, look, humans are human, even the mistakes are going to happen. It's not a mistake. It might be somebody tried to do something at some time, and then by the time they finish, that person may not be your organization, and then you have opened a hole in there. That hole has not been plugged, or it might be people forgot about it. So those exploits might be happening in there. So you see the threat kind of like exposure point of view, that's where the people have been talking that, hey, perimeters are not kind of like well defined anymore, because you can have any device coming in and going out. Threats may come from the various way. You just have bought a software which might have embedded kind of a backdoor in there or malware in there. So those, you have to look kind of comprehensive point of view to provide the cybersecurity. It's not fixed into the perimeter or endpoint only.
Well, and organizations have been solving this almost in a willy-nilly sort of way, in that they have oftentimes more than one solution, oftentimes more than 10 solutions to try to patch where they think the holes are, and as a result they may think they're secure, but in reality they're not really all that secure.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you brought in. So if you look into some time back, so 10 years back, 15 years back, when the perimeters were like, you got a firewall, you got next generation firewall, some endpoint security, antivirus and all that. And then, as you pointed out, the more kind of like the different solutions started coming in there. You might have IPS, IDS, DLP, and maybe even some of the compliance people will come in that, hey, I have a policy management, NAC, and all that in there. So typical organization will have 15 to 20, 30 silos in the medium to big side enterprises in there. And then small businesses, they're mostly relegated to just having a firewall and some endpoint security, some disaster recovery and all that. And the challenge is with the security, the way digitalization is happening in there, those things leaves a lot of gap out there. And if you cannot see those gaps, you don't have a solution which is watching across them, then what ends up happening, these silos, they're trying to work really hard into their own kind of the small view they have. So they create a lot of noise. And what now you have to do is you have to have a very sophisticated level experts to pull it all together to make a sense out of it and understand that what does this really means.
So what are you seeing within organizations that you're speaking to with regard to how they bring that together? So how are they I know how they've gotten to this point of multiple solutions, but how do they start to think about, how do you recommend they think about bringing that together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you see, there are two kind of the drives are going on in there. There is a set of organizations which have already acquired 50, 60 of them, and then now they have realized most of those products had become a self-aware for them. There's not much of the value being derived and all that in there. And then they are thinking about how I kind of get rid of some of them and bring a solution which is more comprehensive in the nature. So that's on the bigger side. On the smaller side, the SMB side businesses in there, what they are looking for is like, hey, we are exposed to a lot of problems. The security is not something, is a problem of only big organization. Now the security is a problem of any digital organization. And if you are not an organization which is digitizing, you will not be a business which will exist in the next few years down the road. So you have to be, your business has to be digitized. It has to be present all the time so people can go and do whatever they want to do. But at the same time, it exposes you. So what is happening now is people are looking into that, hey, I need a comprehensive solution. I need a solution which gives me complete visibility of what are the threats in my organization. And then it's a prioritized list of those where I have to go in, detect those into proactive manner, and then also eliminate, contain. It's not only finding a problem in there, because most of the time what has been happening so far, because of all the gaps, people will take anywhere from 40 days to 200 plus days to detect there was a problem. By that time, your data has already gone out there. It may be sitting somewhere in dark web being sold for a few hundred or few $1,000s out there.
So this is an evolution, a transformation that we see a lot of in the various categories that we cover. It starts out as a collection of point solutions that you put in place.
Yeah.
And they may not necessarily all work together. But then you begin to realize that really hasn't created the kind of vulnerability protection we need. And so you start to think about it as a platform solution. You know, how can we bring in a platform? And that's a transition really for you to speak a little bit more about Seceon, because that's ultimately what you're thinking about, right? Is bringing a platform solution to the table.
Exactly. So when we started almost 3.5, 4 years back now, we had at that time seen that all these big breaches were coming out. And some of those breaches which were coming out, whether it was a Target, Home Depot, or many other ones in there, Sony and all that in there. And it was, if you look into from the person who has been in industry, it looks that this is very obvious. How come people are missing these obvious things out there? That's right. And as you start digging into that, it came out to be the problem that, hey, these silos and their noise, the noise they create so much that people stop looking at it. If I give you every day, you go and do 1,000 tasks, you will be looking, you will do some tasks from the top, sometimes randomly you will put in something there, but you are not doing. And if I just tell you that, you have to do those thousands and your capacity is to do only 10, then it's not going to solve your real problem out there. So it became very obvious that you need to have a solution which had the context and situational awareness to tell exactly what is really issue which you have to go and take care of it immediately. And sometimes you want to take care automatically. You don't have to even have a human involved. So when we started developing a platform, we do understand that many people told us that, hey, you guys are trying to do 4 companies in one, because what we do, we collect the data, raw data from the environment, which is all the flows, log, identities, and we take it into the real-time streaming fashions, and we process it in the real time with the context of what has happened in your organization in the past and what is happening around the world with the threat intelligence we bring in there. And now you can put all these things. You will hear all machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence with actionable intelligence in there, and then dynamic threat models. So what our goal was, we knew that these technology have a very important role to play, but they themselves on its own not sufficient enough. So,
and nor will they necessarily work with one another.
Exactly. So what we had to do is, when we brought the data sets into that raw log flow identity, and as we passed through our set of the engines, what we did is we have put this dynamic threat models and AI and ML together, and then what we have to do is we have to see, because since we are able to see everything now, we are able to make a decision based on the inputs coming from those ones, and sometimes we are able to give the feedback that, hey, this prediction you are doing based on other set of the input we have got from the other engines is not right. Let's change your kind of like deviations out there so that you can go ahead and update yourself automatically in there. So the thing is, a lot of time that is kind of what you call is gradual, residual, like retirement, you are doing it out there. But the key point is what it comes down to, I have got complete comprehensive visibility. I see each and every interactions a application is doing, a host is doing, a user is doing.
And it's really about the data at that point, right?
Exactly.
You're pulling in the data from all those endpoints, from all those applications, from all those appliances.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the things which industry has missed quite a bit, because a lot of time people talk about that, you have this SIM solution, this solution, that solution. Those solutions were done assuming the log will have all the information. And if you look into one of the things in the real world, what happens is, as people are running these applications, there is like, you have a tussle. You have a tussle of, like, you have the security person, and then you have a person who is responsible for the application performance. And what he's doing is, his goal is to get the best performance, lowest latency. So what he's doing is, he's turning off as many log as possible. That's right.
Which is incredibly dangerous for the other side.
Exactly. And if you see, that's the fact of the environment. Any environment you go in there. So what we did, we knew that this problem is there, and that is like also contribute towards the missing of some of the alerts. What we did is, we said, okay, look, there is something which is available in each and every environment. There is a network. The network has the view of all the connectivity, all the things which are happening in. So we take a net flow and we pretty much take it net flow, S flow, J flow, whatever you want to call it. If you don't have a flow, we generate the flow. But what it does when you take a log, flow, and you merge them together with the identity, even the logs which were not generated, I have the view that what was the interaction happening between whom to whom and when it happened in there, which application was involved, and why it was happening. I can bring all the context and everything in there. If this was happening for first time, or it has been happening every day, how much it has been happening, all that context, when I put it in all together, now I have a richer view that this even makes sense. So a lot of time we get very surprised that, oh, we saw these routers, they have the back door in there. Or we have this application, this cloud application has a back door in there, or something like that. We get surprised that how you are not able to say it. Because if you have a right comprehensive view of a solution, you will see that.
So who within the organization needs to be needs to be bringing this together. It's at a fairly high level because you have so many stakeholders already solving these point solution problems.
Yeah. So you have a very great question out there, because you can see, you can get in an organization, if you just started from the security team, and if they have a challenge getting the data set, some of these flow information from the network team in there, then you are not going to go anywhere.
Right.
So you definitely have to kind of have a stakeholder from the CTO or CIO who understand that, hey, the security is not a standalone. Security and my organization operational excellence, as well as my application performance, they are all related. A lot of time, what we are finding out, you put our solution in the environment in there. If we had those stakeholders involved in there, they go and start fixing their problems immediately, because you don't want like a broken login system which is generating like 100,000 login a day in organization. That can be a brute force, but when the real brute force comes in there, you are not going to find it, because you already had a broken system which is generating 100,000 of login every day, because it's automated in there and it's going in there. And we see those. So when you have the stakeholders, and it can be CTO, CIO, or it may be even a director, or as long as they have the preview of the wider organization, depending on the size of the organization, you get people pretty excited about it. And they want to go and fix the problems in there, and they feel good about it. If you have created a friction, that security team is telling the like networking or application team that, hey, you have this broken, that broken in there, then you create a friction. You don't want to do that. And believe me, we had a situation in the beginning, very early on, our first few outing, and the first outing we had a situation where security team kind of got overexcited and start pointing the finger at the operation and especially application team and network team, because all the problems were visible out there, and that created some friction. So we had to go and have a discussion at the higher level, CTO level, to make sure that it is understood that, hey, this is the best for everyone. It's not just for the security.
And I think really that's the ultimate point, and one that we'll end with, which is it's time for organizations to really take a larger look at the challenges they're facing, that they may think that the point solutions they put in place are getting the job done, but really the world is so rapidly changing and the threats are so real that they need to take a much larger overall view of things, and obviously be vigilant and continue to look at new solutions like Seceon.
I agree.
Well, thank you very much for being here. This is very helpful, and we appreciate the time. We would encourage you to check out all that Chandra's company is doing, Seceon, with regard to security information and event management and the larger cybersecurity story, and obviously go to our cybersecurity sites at Solutions Review and take with you as much information as you need. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to talk with you, and great work being done by your team.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.